as far as what I want to do with my clients. So I want to make sure that I'm providing protection in the today and the tomorrow. So, and make sure that my clients are protected 100% of the time. So this concept is called the theory of decreasing responsibility. So what it says here, if we look at this bottom line, that's going to be our savings and our investments. The top line is going to be our need for life insurance. So it says in the early years, you may not have a lot of money, right? Or else you'll be retired and have a good time. So we don't have a lot of money, but we have high responsibilities. Could have young kids, debt, mortgage, and the loss of income would be devastating if we don't have a lot of money and assets, right? So that's why it says in the early years, you need to have a lot of coverage. But fast forward in time, at retirement now, which typically the earliest you can take out of a retirement account is 59 and a half, so let's say 60. Now your kids are grown, debt's paid, house should be paid off, if not close to being paid off, and your focus shifts to your investments. So once we hit retirement now, we better have the money, hopefully millions if we can, or hundreds of thousands. And at that point, we may not need as much coverage or may not need anything at all, right? So that's kind of our overall goal, and making sure that we're covering all of the bases. If we die too soon, that 10% of the time is taken care of with the insurance. If we live too long, the other 90% is taken care of by our investments. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's go over a little bit about the first part of that, which is the income protection. So do you know about how much life insurance coverage you have now?
Just 100,000 for my job.
For your job? Okay, awesome. And so with that, there's usually 4 ways that a family can be protected regarding their income protection or life insurance. So first one is having no coverage. You fit into category number 2, where you have employer or group insurance, right? Then there's also private types of life insurance, which is cash value or term. So let's address the employer coverage. So when you have your 100,000 at your job, what are some disadvantages that you can think of that come to mind only having an extra job?
Maybe if I leave.
Okay, right. So that's a major thing. If we leave our job, that coverage doesn't go with us. That's the number one issue, is that it's not portable. We can leave the job voluntarily or involuntarily, and now we no longer have that coverage. So that's the first area that we want to address. Secondly, now is going to come into the nitty-gritty, the fine print. So let's say, Samir, you took your certificate from your employer, and remind me again where you work now?
Amazon.
Amazon, right? So you take your certificate from Amazon, and you take it to an attorney, Mr. Smith. And Mr. Smith, you take it to Mr. Smith, and you're like, hey, I just want you to read over this and just make sure my family is going to be taken care of if anything was to happen to me. Mr. Smith's going to say, I'll read this for you, Samir, but I just want to let you know right on the front page where it says policyholder, it doesn't say Samir. It says Amazon. And when you have other types of insurance, like the car insurance, your health insurance, your homeowner's insurance, who's the policyholder? Yeah, you. So you have all of the rights, but when it's at our job, it's our employer. So now they have all of the rights. So let's look into the fine print here. This was somebody that worked at the state of Maryland. And there's a couple things that people might not be aware of. So the first one here says, can this certificate be amended? Can you read what that says to me there in blue?
We retain the right to amend the certificate at any time without your consent.
Right. So what do you think that means?
They can change it.
Yeah. So you have 100,000 now. Next year it could be 10,000, or it might not be anything at all. Next, it says, what is the actively at work requirement? So this is kind of a kicker. So I know it's a really long paragraph, might be a little bit of a run-on, but can you read that for me?
To be eligible to become insured or to receive an increase in the amount of insurance, you must be actively at work, fully performing your customary duties for your regularly scheduled number of hours at the employer's normal place of business or at other places the employer's business requires you to travel. If you are not working due to illness or injury, you do not meet the actively at work requirement.
Wow. Were you aware of that before?
No.
It's crazy, right? And when most people pass away, are they just going to pass away at their job? No. A lot of times they get sick first. They go to the hospital first. Maybe they're at home on bed rest, right? So what I'm going to do is kind of show you a quick example here of a client that kind of went through the situation. So there's two examples. We have a video that you can play. So if you click this little video down here, it'll play an example of a client that had group insurance and then didn't get the payout, right? So you can play that for your client. And then also, second option here, we have an example of a certificate. And so we had a client, so Samir, we had a client that came in that was in our office, and just last year after COVID, right, December 16th, a week before before Christmas, right? His wife received this letter from her employer. And it says, we reviewed your claim for your life insurance under that policy number and regret to inform you no benefits are payable. Please let me explain, right? And what does it say? What did we just talk about?
Actively working.
Right. He wasn't working 40 hours or more, right? Therefore, he was not active at work, and it wouldn't begin until he returned to work. So if we're sick and dying, are we ever returning to work? No, probably not, right? So this is never going to pay out. So can you start to see the importance why having group insurance through your job can be pretty risky?
Yes.
Awesome. So there, we usually don't include group insurance in our analysis. So typically, if somebody does not have any coverage outside of work, it's due to one of these three reasons. Either number one, they say, I don't really think I need it, I didn't think I could afford it, or I just never really got around to it. So which one did you say best describes you?
I didn't think I could afford it.
Okay. All right. So a lot of people think that life insurance is a lot more expensive than it really is, but our job is to find that balance between what you need and what you can afford. So would you say that protecting your family is important enough that you'd be willing to begin setting aside some money each month to take care of them?
Yes.
Perfect. And if we could put together a program that was affordable for you, is there any reason that you wouldn't implement that?
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. So let's go into some different types of coverage. Do you want to keep going? We're good? Okay. So typically after this, we'll go into the two different types of private coverage you can have, and then go into quoting, and then eventually closing.
So I think one of the things that I noticed that she does is she just drops a lot of seeds. What you don't want in a good presentation, the client shouldn't be surprised, right, that she is going to give a quote on insurance, right? Because there's many different instances throughout the presentation where she dropped a seed that you need coverage. This is what's going to happen if you don't have coverage. This is the problem, right? And then she asked them, do you have coverage? This is the problem with your coverage. Can you see why you're underinsured? How long would that money last? Do you want your family to be better or worse or stay the same, right? If something happened right now, would they be better? So there's the one thing that we've always learned is that the quality of a presentation, right, is in the questions. So if you have quality questions, it's going to be a quality presentation. So as you watch this video, if you didn't want to take notes while she was going through it, and you're going to take notes while you're watching the video, the replay, you want to make sure that you write down every question. If nothing else, that will help you get a lot better at this. But I thought it was really good. Lots of stuff that I don't say or do, so I'll definitely incorporate a lot of that. I thought it flowed really well. I thought that, you'll have to work on that, but her speed. If you talk, 1/3 as fast as her, it's going to be a very long presentation, right? So she's getting through it very quickly, but still asking questions to make sure that the client is involved, right? So what questions do we have about this?
So, did you show them your slides, or you just talk to them?
They'll be able to see it. So if I'm on
Okay.
Zoom, I'm sharing my screen with them. If I'm in person, then I'll have it on a tablet and I'll be able to see it as well.
And what type of tablet is that where you can write on the screen like that?
Any touchscreen device that you have, iPad, computer that's touchscreen, you can do that in PowerPoint as long as you have a stylus. Yeah, good.
I've seen your presentation because she's a trainer. You mentioned probably never see your presentation and Jen's. Is there a place that on YouTube channel that they might be out there where I can see the different?
Yeah, Jen's is on there.
Okay.
She did it last time, and then we got Sean to do it this time. I think those are the ones you want to see. Even mine is not as, it's just theirs is better right now. Right now, theirs is better 100%.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sheila?
That letter, that second letter for the group, is that on the presentation? Because I was looking.
It's in
I didn't see
the
it.
most updated one,
Yeah.
in the Top Gun thread, yes, it's on.
The 7/22/2022.
Should be,
I didn't see that one.
I'll,
'Cause I was
I'll share
following
it.
you while you were doing it.
okay. There,
There was a slide, I think it was before you go into the different types of insurance.
The
Yeah,
theory,
What is that? Yeah, what's on the lower right? That's new.
this,
Yeah.
so I basically, I told everybody, well, I told Thomas that I made some updates, but it's just gonna talk about, the different types of savings accounts that people can have.
Oh, okay.
Accounts like this.
What's
Yeah,
your prep with the training before and afterwards the briefing? Because also in terms of when you let the training talk about their personal stories, that's something you guide them through, or you just let them sit with it?
great question. So if you guys couldn't hear, he asked what's the prep with training before, debriefing after, and then do you guide them with personal story. So typically, most likely I would try to do the trainee's personal appointment before I do any other presentations. So now they've already kind of seen it, and if I can't do that, I'll send them a recording of me doing it, and I'll send them a copy of the slides. And then have them ask me any questions that they may have before we do that first presentation. So they have a full idea before we go into any other training appointments. And then as far as prepping them, I just let them know that I'm going to introduce me when we get on. I'll tell my story, find out about them, tell your personal story. I do have a recording of some tips for personal story, so I will try to send that to them ahead of time, and have them kind of start gearing up the personal story and practicing it. And then, yes, I do debrief after the appointment. So debriefing after you finish with the client, if you have enough time before your next appointment, if you're not back to back, you want to go over the appointment, their feedback, what questions did they write down, things like that with their training.
all right, so I want to close with this, that, some of you guys are new in here, you have no idea what that was. You'll figure it out as you go on more appointments. That's the main thing. But what is it worth to you to learn that presentation? Okay, that was a 20-minute presentation. When I first got in the business, there was no iPad, there was no internet on appointments, nothing. Everything was basically drawn out, and then I had brochures that I would put into a binder and plastic sleeves, and I would kind of go through it, right? Now, the way we've designed it is it prompts you in terms of what to say. A lot of the tougher questions, the commitment questions, are in there as long as you're hitting next on the mouse or you're clicking, it's literally telling you what to say. If you do that presentation, you are going to uncover with the client any old assets they have that are underperforming that can potentially be moved over with us. If they don't have insurance, they can get it. If they have the wrong kind of insurance, they can change it, right? If they need college savings plans, these are, doing an appointment is one of the most lucrative activities that you can do. It's an income producing activity. Listen to me, young people. Watching videos on the nicest yacht in the world is not an income producing activity, right? Scrolling through social media endlessly and watching people dance, which I love to do too, right, is not an income producing activity. If you want to actually have some of those things, right, and you want to have more control in your life and more freedom, you have to learn income producing activity. Doing these presentations is worth thousands of dollars potentially every few times you do it. Not every time, but every few times. But it's up to you how the frequency, so that the ones that do close, how closely they happen to each other. If you go on 3 appointments a month, it'll happen once a month. If you go on 3 appointments a week, you can make income every week.
Does that make sense? This is worth learning, man. And I'm telling you, a lot of people, most of the clients we sit down with have never experienced anything like this. And take it from me, because my circle now and the referrals that I get, it's usually a $300,000 to $500,000 a year income. And if they haven't seen it, I know the average and ordinary person hasn't seen it either. Trust me when I tell you this. People need to see it, but you need to learn it. You need to practice it. You need to drill it. You need to rehearse it. You need to sit down with your mom and dad. You need to sit down with your wife. You need to sit down with your siblings and practice it. Do mock appointments, because it's worth it. I mean, this guy I just recruited, he makes 200 grand a year. He cannot believe that you can make $500 to $1,000 on just an insurance sale, or you can roll over someone's 401k and make $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. That's someone at that income, right? This is worth learning. Not every, I'm spitting over because it's Invisalign. But this is like this can really move the needle on your income. That's the thing. There's a lot of business opportunities out there. It ain't gonna move the needle. This can really move the needle in your life, but you got to learn it to the point to where there's a gap between you and the person you're sitting with. And as that gap grows, your income is going to grow. Okay. So let's set a ton of appointments. We have month end, I think, is going to be a week from Monday, right? So we have today, tomorrow, and then another 8 days from there, or 7 days. So 9, 10 days until the end of the month. Little behind, so we need to catch up on the production, and the appointments that we set today are going to get us on track. Okay. Hope you guys got a lot out of that. Make sure you watch the video. Once we post it, we'll put it out onto the thread and watch it as many times as you can. Team 1, 3, 1, 2, 3.
We just have one.
Jen, can you show her how to get
I'll share it with you.
Can you just click on it, subscribe to it?